Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hash Rate. Today, my guest is Djinn, Subnet 103. We have Harry, Iosif, and Philip. Hello, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Hi. Well, Mark. Great to see you. Great to be here.
Any interesting news lately? I think we have to talk a little bit about this, right? Because this whole thing that happened with Covenant, which for those hiding under a rock and don't know, Covenant ran three subnets, the most well-known being Templar, Subnet 3, Basilica, and then there's one other one I always forget, Grail, right? So all sort of, Templar themed subnets. And Templar Subnet 3 became very well known recently. It had a little moment in the sun because it cracked a version of decentralized training, achieving a 72 billion parameter model, which was highlighted on the All In pod and other places by Chamath, and Chamath and Jensen spoke about it. So it sort of had a little moment in the sun. And then last afternoon or evening, kind of out of nowhere, the founder, Sam Dare, announced that Covenant was leaving Bittensor, and he cited basically lack of decentralization, kind of a squabble with Konst, the founder of Bittensor, the co-founder of Bittensor, and then proceeded to drain what appears to have drained $11 million worth of tokens out of the Covenant liquidity pools and vanished. So gentlemen, what did you think when you first saw this, and what do you think it means for Bittensor? Harry, we'll start with you.
Actually, I mean, I think that, I'm still trying to process it because we are relatively new to Bittensor. But I mean, I think that my takeaway, and maybe others will have more interesting things, I'm treating it, or trying to treat it, more or less as noise, because we have things that we're trying to build, and these things are there's a lot of things always happening in other subnets. Of course, this affects kind of the ecosystem as a whole. Yeah. But we're less than, at least now, having the benefit of 12 to 18 hours of hindsight. I mean, at least I do think the community reaction has been generally positive, in that this is an opportunity to to grow, to maybe fix some things that are broken, but otherwise to move forward. So that's my hope with this.
Yeah, me too. Iosif and Philip, any other thoughts?
I just think that generally higher volatility is good for long-term stability, because if a system can get perturbed very violently and survive, it generally means it's going to survive for longer. It's like Bittensor. I think it's anti-fragile, to use a word.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously I was shocked like everyone else when I saw this happening. But ultimately, I mean, I don't think, some people are like, oh my God, Tau is over. I'm seeing that like on X. And I'm like, no, that's, there's 128 subnets. These were three of them, right? But I think to me, the higher order bit here is that, what does it really mean to leave Bittensor with your subnet? Can you really walk out the front door with it, right? And I don't think you can, because what really happens is when you leave, Bittensor with your subnet, what really happens is your incentivization engine, your subsidies go away. So you've just sort of cut yourself off from your energy supply, and now the miners and all the intellectual work that's gone into your subnet is still there and can be picked up by someone else. And in fact, in this case, Konst has said he's going to pick up Templar Subnet 3 and run it, and he can pick up right where Sam left off, with the same people and the same code and the same incentivization engine, and off he goes. Meanwhile, what is Covenant now without Bittensor? Well, it's like they've locked themselves out of their own house permanently, and they can never get back in, and everybody else is still living in what was their old house, right? So I sort of look at that and I'm like, I think that's the case. And also I think that we've learned a lesson here, and I think the lesson that we've learned is that the incentivization alignment engine falls out of alignment when the founder is motivated to raid the liquidity pool of, once you get enough energy and enough enough liquidity and enough fame, right? There's a big temptation to go and run with that liquidity pool, right? So we have to fix that, and Const addressed that last night in saying that in the future, one of the things Bittensor is going to do in the very near future, I think this is going to get fixed pretty quickly, is make it so that subnet owners' tokens are locked up and they have to unlock them in a visible way, so that if they are thinking about leaving, all of us, like the tokens will have like a 72-hour or something like that, some period of time unlock period. We'll all see it happening, right? So we'll have advanced warning that like maybe something is up. Maybe they're selling their tokens to support their burn, or maybe something else is up, but all of us will see it. They won't be able to execute that as sort of a surprise. So that, I think, should solve the bulk of this problem. What do you guys think about that as a solution, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we've been thinking about the solution, but to think a little bit more about the problem, it's there is something beautiful about what happened, which is they shut down because Bittensor was not, in their view, decentralized enough, right? Yeah. They weren't trying to get out and be like, oh, the heck with this philosophy. No, they love the philosophy. Sam loves the philosophy, loves it so much that he wants to pursue it some other way or not pursue it or whatever. But philosophically, it's a huge alignment, right? There's a fundamental belief in decentralization. Now, maybe like you're saying, maybe some changes here can come to the protocol and the definitions to allow for decentralization to flourish even more. But even as it was, you were asking first reaction. My first reaction, probably the same as yours, because people were throwing this word around, this was a rug, right? That's the worst thing you can imagine. And when we first launched our subnet, or when we were first, like 3 months ago or something, there was another rug, right? Subnet 67, if you remember. So we're very careful to avoid that. That's like the worst thing you could do is rug. And no one wants to do that. Now, this one, I'm not sure it was technically a rug. The guy just sold alpha shares that he's entitled to sell at the price that was determined. So it's the same. I mean, you can say we had recently some DDoS attacks on our subnet, our own 103 Djinn. And that's painful. That's really annoying to see when miners are attacking other miners. But it's within the incentive mechanism. So the solution should be within the incentive mechanism. So as we twiddle with disincentives, it keeps the vision alive. And I mean, there's no reason why Sam can't come back at some point.
Well, I mean, at this point, I think probably our trust is a little bit lower than it was before, given current events. But I mean, you do make a very good point that he did play within the rules of the system, right? He didn't. There was nothing that he did that was illegal by Bittensor standards. He owned tokens. Anybody can cash out tokens at any time. I think, so I don't know legally, if he crossed any lines or not. I'm not going to speculate on that. But I do think, the solution does, I do agree with you that the solution does have to be within the rules of Bittensor, and Const proposed sort of his first draft of what that solution is. So I think it's pretty good. Okay, enough about the negative stuff. I want to talk about some positive stuff now. Let's get the positive vibes flowing. You guys are a hot new subnet, and I've heard quite a bit about you guys. There's a lot of buzz about you people, and the quality of the people on this team and the quality of what you're building here. So why don't I hand it over to you guys? Tell me, what are you building?
Oh, well, the initial, the first thing we're building and kind of where the idea came from is that we've been working together for over 5 years. We have a prior business actually in sports betting education, but we come from various aspects around education, the betting world, finance, and kind of in that general, and biotech as well. There's a fundamental problem that exists in sports betting, and we are not. I want to be clear: we're not a sports betting subnet, but we can talk about what the differences are. But the key is that there are people who have information. We call them geniuses. They have information, but they can't act on the information. So someone who knows that a bet is profitable, but because they're profitable, they get banned from the sports books, and they can't actually act on and monetize their information. And then there's people who can monetize and can bet, but they don't actually know what to bet on. They have no information. We call them idiots, affectionately. So what we're building is and we've been trying to solve this problem. So the problem is the genius has the information, wants to execute on it, can't. The idiot can, but doesn't know any geniuses to give him the information. This is something that's been solved in a centralized, non-scalable way by pretty much any professional bettor in the world. They find, what would you do if you were in this situation? You find your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, your friends, your cousins, and how far are you willing to push this to keep yourself in business and to scale? Eventually, you hit a limit. Now, the biggest and the best can get that limit up to maybe a few hundred or a few thousand people, but we estimate around 500 million sports betting accounts in the world, owned predominantly by people who are losing bettors. So that is a huge liquidity and a huge kind of an asset that these people hold if it could be tapped into. So the model that we have in our mind is, think of it like Uber. What did Uber do is you have people who have cars and they're not cars and free time and they're not using it. People who need a ride to get somewhere. So here we have, there's people who have sports betting accounts, which actually are free to set up. You don't even have to pay for it. And maybe they want to make a little extra money, but they don't know how to make the money. Well, there's plenty of people there's people out there who know how to make the money, but they don't have access to the accounts. Actually, and maybe Philip, it would be good to talk to this. Bittensor is actually critical to our execution in this. So we've been trying to solve this for several years and couldn't find the way to make it work, because the natural challenge here is there's trust issues, there's execution issues, there's all kinds of issues that a decentralized solution is in many ways critical to.
Yeah, so let me try to recapitulate what I think you said. So basically, there's 500,000 people out there who are betting, who have these accounts that are doing sports betting.
500 million.
500 million. My mistake. Massive market, right? So, but most of those people are losing, right? So if they somehow had access to geniuses, people who who are better at predicting the outcome of sporting games, and they could purchase that information. Like somebody out there's got Biff's Sports Almanac effectively, right? And if you could just buy from that person, who's going to win, that's valuable information to you. So you've created a marketplace around that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. Sorry, go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, the idea is unbundling intelligence and execution. We have a very general and quite ambitious view of what Djinn can be. But where our wedge into the market, our focus is this specific use case in order to prove out the concept. And then even this alone is, a multi-billion dollar market. And then if you layer on top of that the possibilities that it unlocks by having an economically proven model, the sky really is the limit, because intelligence can be used almost anywhere.
Okay, and you guys mentioned, so let's talk about how you use your subnet. So how exactly does the subnet come into play? And is sort of my thesis that if someone leaves Bittensor with their subnet, they kind of unplug themselves from the power source. Does that apply to you guys? I think it does, but why don't you tell me how the subnet sort of plays into what you're doing here?
Sure. So we actually took a long time for us to understand the right way the subnet should work together. Initially, when you first hear this idea, and what we first thought was maybe the miners are geniuses and the idiots are validators, or vice versa, or we have multiple. No, the right way forward is for the miners to be the ones who validate the executability of information. So a genius says, I want to make this bet, Lakers -3.5 and -110, right? Well, is that a legitimate bet? Does that really exist? We can't trust each other. We can't go looking over each other's shoulders. Oh, I tried to put it in. It doesn't exist. So that's what the miners do. That's their main contribution, is to make sure that the signal is real. It's executable. The validators then just walk through. The validators are the ones who are connected to the smart contracts that then settle. What are the smart contracts doing? Basically, at the end of the day, the most important thing is, can the genius sell his signal to somebody who wants to buy it for a fair price, a mutually agreed price. In other words, we're just selling the information. Whatever the idiot, the buyer, does with that information, entirely on their side. If they want to bet it, bet it. If you don't want to bet it, don't bet it. It doesn't matter. What you did here, it's an information marketplace, but it's not just a tout marketplace or just whatever, Wild West. The point of the decentralized, trustless protocol is to ensure that the information is attestable and accountable, so that we could talk more about the specific mechanisms in place, but that the genius has some accountability for skill. It's not just random numbers. If they really are selling high quality data, there should be a way to measure that. So the subnet ultimately creates exactly what you're saying, a decentralized, unescapable area for the miners and validators to provide the context for all of the smart contracts to settle. So it provides an objective view of what is truth through the UMA protocol on the validator side and through competition on the miner side. So we don't have to take anybody's word for it. There's not really any disputes. It's just kind of, it works and it's natural.
So basically, so the first thing the miners do is they validate that the contests, if I'm giving information, a prediction on a particular game, first thing they do is the miners validate, like, this is a real game. These are real teams. It's really going to happen at such and such a time. And then after the game is played, this side won and that side lost, and this was the score. Is that correct?
That's correct, except for the which side won and what was the score. The validators just do that because that's easy.
Validators. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's easy. The hard part is checking the odds, because the game score is free. Everyone knows it, right? But do we know that this bet was available at these certain books? That's where the miners fight to be faster and more accurate.
Okay, so it's not only that the game is real; it's that it is bettable and that the odds are a certain way.
Yes.
So
Now, first of all, by the way, I have to say, Mark, you ever have a situation where you spent 6 years with two of your closest friends working on a project, and then someone comes around and explains it better than you could? When you put out your tweet and what you just said about Biff, I think you probably heard three people at the same time hitting their heads. My God, that's exactly right. It's exact. Why didn't we think of Biff? We love Back to the Future. Yes, it's exactly that situation.
Because my head is a cornucopia of useless movie information. That's why.
But it's so perfect. It's exactly right. So if you have that information, yeah, thank you.
I'm glad it was helpful to somebody.
It's perfect. So those are the geniuses who come across with information. Now, what if in the real world, if Biff calls you and says, suppose you want to be Biff's idiot, and he tells you something, you have all sorts of things that can go wrong. You might not place the bet, or you place the bet wrong, or you don't give him the money, or he doesn't give you the money. It might be illegal, or all sorts of things can break on. Even worse, someone might be eavesdropping, right? Wasn't that part of the plot? Someone might be eavesdropping on the phone call from you, from him. There's all sorts of potential leakage. Yeah. That's the real world. We now live in the beautiful world of Bittensor. In Bittensor, we've found a solution that keeps that signal secret from everybody. The only person who knows it is Biff, the genius, and the idiot who purchases it. If you don't purchase it, you never find out. It stays secret from all of us, from Djinn, from miners, from validators, from everybody. We're going to make it as strong as possible, but that's the goal. Completely secret, end to end, even on past track records. But at the same time, the track record is verifiable. You know the numbers, how accurate a person was, even though you don't know what the specific bets were. That's where a lot of the validators' work comes in, is splitting that information into secret components that no single validator knows the information, but they can move it from one to the other. The miners then check all sorts of different lines. Many of them are decoy lines. They don't know which one's real, but all of that's working together to make sure that the signal is going just from the person who knows it to the person who paid for it.
Yeah, I did read through your materials, and I found that pretty interesting. That not only is the real betting information from the geniuses provided, but there's also, I guess, 9. For every there's one real one, and then like 9 decoys. So that the miner, I guess it's so that the miners they don't know which one's the real signal, right? But
That's right.
cryptographically under the hood, you guys do. So that's, yeah.
No,
Even
well,
that's been improved at this point, right, Philip?
yeah, it's not even 9 anymore. It's almost like 1,000 will have
Oh,
decoys.
wow.
But
Okay.
even we don't know. There's nothing we can do to get in there and look at it. It's cryptographically impossible even for us to find out.
Yeah, okay. And so who can mine, like, so let's talk about who the miners are or can be. So I recently got out my claw, my open claw, and vibe mined a subnet 85. And it was like sort of a, yeah, you guys know about this? It was like a 2-week excursion that I took because I'm not naturally, I'm technical, but I haven't coded in like forever. And I don't have the sysadmin skills to, mine most subnets. But I realized when OpenClaw came out, I'm like, wait, I think my claw can just do this, right? So I was like, I just told it, it's like, we're going to go mine a subnet, pick one. It picked 85 and said, what do I need to set up? And it told me to set up a box here and storage there. And so I did and gave it the API keys and off it went. And I was able to successfully vibe mine subnet 85 for some period of time. And so, and one of the things that struck me about that was that OpenClaw and agents in general democratize Bittensor because all the complexity of mining and just how it all works just goes away. You just tell your client what to mine and it just does it for you. So it occurred to me, I was like, if I could publish my skill, my mining, everything my claw knows about mining as a skill, then anybody else could follow me and their claw would get like the kung fu, like, I know kung fu. And it would know everything that my claw knew about mining subnet 85 and Bittensor in general. And that would democratize the mining of my subnet. So my question is this, is your subnet, do you think, claw mineable and friendly in that way?
Definitely. It doesn't even need a claw. It's a pretty simple, we've tried to make the code completely open source, but easy for any miner. You just download it, you're good to go. It's just done. The only hard part is you need an API key for some source of the betting information, the odds data, so you can attest at a certain period of time whether these bets were live or not. And one of the things that you have to do when you're attesting, because miners respond to incentives too. Why not just say, yeah, everything is real, or whatever, get rewards. So we went through a lot of incentive mechanism design there too, and ultimately we landed on the following: that first you respond quickly on what the truth is, as you view it. Yes, this one is, this one's not, and so on. But then you also run in the background this thing called TLS Notary. TLS Notary is an open source project that allows you to cryptographically prove that a particular website said a particular thing at a particular time. So if there's ever a dispute to say, oh, I don't think that odds was actually executable. No, it was. Here's the API call. Here's the proof. You can verify it. Anybody can verify. The way it works is the S in HTTPS. You shove in a third party. So you have the viewer, you have the server, and you have a notary that's notarizing without seeing what's happening, that in fact this all happened correctly at the same time as you claimed. So everything is above board. You have those proofs coming through, but running it is just a matter of spinning up a box and downloading the code and saying go.
Yeah, okay. And then the way you sell this to your customers, so your customers are the idiots, and to use your phrasing, that's not me saying that. So, but the customers are basically single serving, right? It's almost like a vending machine. It's a prediction vending machine, an accurate prediction, mostly accurate prediction vending machine, right? So,
Mark, you did it again. Another one.
It's like, exactly, I've been thinking about this a lot, right? So, because there's a lot of subnets that require people to have subscriptions and are sort of like pay me monthly. And I'm like, I don't really feel like that's like, it feels like the way, especially if agents are now going to be very big or maybe even primary customers of this sort of thing, they're going to look around for the vending machine that gives them like, I'm going to put a quarter in and I get a prediction, right? Like that. And they don't want a subscription. I don't want like HBO Max. Like that's too much overhead, right? I just want to buy the movie, right? I want to watch it right now. That's all. Right. And so I feel like, so I guess where I'm going with this is this up and first of all, is this up and running right now? Is there a website with sort of a Craigslist of all of the predictions that I can buy? And two, how are you thinking about marketing to agents? Is that something you're thinking about like I just described?
Well, let me give two quick reasons. And I think Iosif and Harry can add on to this. Yes, it is a vending machine in that sense. It is live on Djinn.gg, DJINN.gg. But it's live with, we're still testing. It's live with fake money, the fake base coin. So you can play with it, test it. The odds are live. Everything is going through. But we want to make sure that the quality is as high as possible before we switch to live dollars. So we're still ironing things out. It's only been 2 months since we've launched the subnet. So we've progressed enormously to have it to the point where it's at. The second answer to your API, that the website is for human beings, but we also have an API underneath it, which is very agent friendly, and it's very easy to use. And even in the small cases that you want, like if you want to spend 25 cents, the genius would put in the max notional that he's willing to offer and the price as a percentage. And if they have a minimum notional, then fine, maybe you're excluded from that one. But if not, you cut it down as small as you want. As long as you pay the price as an agent, you get the information.
Do you have, so first of all, you mentioned this is on base. So the payment rails for buying the information, it is only on base at the moment, and it's USDC. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And is there an X402 payment rail for agents or something else? Or is that something you're thinking about yet or not?
Now we're thinking about it. Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Well, because I'll tell you what I'm thinking, right? So there's a number of people that are using their clause now to automate their usage of stock trading and crypto trading, but I would guess probably also sports betting, right? And so they have a claw that you give the claw wallet and it goes off and bets on things, but it needs inputs for intelligence, right? Like it doesn't know how to predict these things. So if you give the claw a way to sort of, there's a market that just opened up here, I want to bet on it. Let's go check Djinn and see if it's got anything I could buy. So now it opens up Djinn and it looks through the current listings. It's like, oh, look, there's 3 predictions for this game that I want to bet on. And this one is from Biff. Biff Tannen seems to be pretty good at predicting who's going to win. I don't know how he's doing it, but he seems to be really good at it, right? And then there's 2 other people that are like, yeah, they're okay. But I want Biff Tannen, so I'm going to pay a little premium for that, right? And I know his reputation. And usually when people make these things, X402 at the moment seems to be the dominant payment rail because agents can pay over it, right? It uses HTTPS to basically facilitate the trade. And I believe Base and USDC are primarily supported by X402. So that's what I'm thinking. And that's why I'm like, I feel like there's probably a big market there.
I think that's a brilliant idea, and we're going to implement it immediately.
Very good. Yeah, I know a bunch of other subnets are. I know like Hippias has got it. There's a bunch. It's just sort of like you just bolt it on there. And then basically, well, the other thing I was going to ask you was in using my own claw, my claw didn't know about certain things, right? So I needed storage for my Subnet 85 VidIO vibe mining, right? Because you have to put the video somewhere while you're working on it. So I needed storage. And it's like, hey, you should use Amazon S3 or Backblaze. And it just didn't know about Hippias, right? And that sort of stuck in my mind. And I told it about Hippias, and it was like, oh, yeah, this is actually way better and way cheaper. But it just didn't know about it, right? So it occurred to me that somehow claws need to be marketed too. Like there's like a new class of marketing I call in my head claw SEO. And I think somehow you got to get it in the training data that the claw has consumed. And I don't know how you do that, but somehow the claw has to be aware of you so that it can suggest you, right? So I guess you haven't thought about this yet, but my question was going to be like, how do you think about claw SEO?
We have not thought about that. I think that is a really important thing. I have heard some people doing, like you said, if you get into the training data, then it comes through. I don't know if Molt Book and all those things are still up, but presumably people will still share there. That is something that I've heard. I've heard people infesting Molt Book is one way that they get into the side of the claw's brains, right? So that's the only way I'm aware of at the moment in order to do this. But for Bittensor as a whole, it might be good to have, whether it's a skill or something, just a claw tensor that lists all of the subnets, what they do, all their endpoints. You know, you're breaking my heart right now because I'll tell you something. So I was talking to Sam about this a week and a half ago before he left us with his subnets. But the idea was going to be that Basilica is sort of shoots alike, if you will, where he provides inference.
was going to basically have a OpenClaw instance baked into it, like hosted OpenClaw, with all of the Bittensor subnets as sort of like the default setting for any of the services, right? And it would be that this claw in particular would have all the skills from all the subnets loaded into it and be very, Bittensor aware and meant to sort of Lego brick things together with sort of a Bittensor first mentality, right? So somebody's going to do it. I fully agree with you. That is the way it should be done. It has not been done yet, and it'll be great for the entire ecosystem when it happens. I mean, I know Const's response to all this OpenClaw stuff was to make Arbos, right? The Arbos bot. I don't know if you've heard him talking about that. It's not as consumer friendly. It's made for nerds. You use Telegram as the primary user interface to it. It's not like a website and sort of more consumery the way OpenClaw is. But it is more powerful in some ways, which I won't get into. But that's he just sort of did his own spin on it. Okay.
Just to follow up on that, I agree with you. The agents might want to act as idiots, but they might also act as geniuses.
Okay. Oh, interesting. How would you picture that? You're right. That is. So tell me a little bit about that. What do you think?
If they have some information, whatever you have a smart claw. IOSIF runs some smart claws. If they come up with ideas, if they're looking at prediction markets or sports betting, if they have a model that they've built over and over and iterated, right? They don't have to be miners and worry about emissions. That's how a lot of, as Harry was mentioning earlier, that's how conventional perspectives on predictions and sports betting might work, is you think they would compete miner to miner. No, here you do it completely off chain, and once you have something that works, you monetize it through Djinn.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, let's talk a little bit about your guys' backgrounds. Like, where do you come from? And I'm going to start with Harry on this one, because many people have told me that you are a storied and well-known mathematician, and I'd like to hear a little bit about your background. Who are you, and what were you doing before this, and what led you to this idea? And we'll start with Harry on that.
Yeah, well, I'd like to meet the people you're but I appreciate it. So one thing, I'm a statistics professor, but I've also, so my interest in this specifically, I mean, I've been involved in betting and gambling my whole life. That's what actually got me into statistics, not the other way around. So, it started with, poker 25 years ago, but then, statistics is actually more useful for sports than data analysis than actual poker. And my area is, my area of research is, one of the areas is probability, and more recently prediction markets. I've been studying prediction markets for about 10 years now, although that was kind of independently of my, practical pursuits in betting. My interest in prediction markets was more academic initially with, modeling studying elections and things like that. And that was very different 10 years ago than it is today. And now the two worlds are kind of colliding or, coming together, of course, as prediction markets have grown. But, so anyway, that's the academic side, but on the practical side of things, just generally have always been interested in the practical side of betting. It's something that I know a lot about, not only as a practitioner, and working with Philip and Iosif, we've brought the practical side of betting with the academic side. That was through our previous and ongoing work with Analytics.bet, which is an educational platform. And, more recently now with the prediction markets, I mean, there's just a lot of things that I'm involved in there. The regulatory body in the U.S. is the CFTC. I serve on one of their committees for advising on, regulation and innovation. It's not only prediction markets, actually, it's a prediction market, blockchain, cryptocurrency, and other kind of new financial technologies. So right in the mix with everything we're talking about here. There's probably some other things, but that's kind of the broad overview. Yeah,
that's great. Iosif, let's hear from you. Who are you? Where'd you come from, and how'd you get involved in this?
So my original working background was in finance and asset management. And then I went into entrepreneurship and started some companies. Most recently Imuvia. So I've been running that for about 9 years, which is a biologics company focusing on something we call cancer lysis, which are bispecific apoptosis triggers. Won't bother you with the detail, but basically we kill solid tumors. That's what we're working on. My academic pursuits while I was building, my companies were mostly in computational immunology. So applying mathematical techniques to understanding how the body works at the self non-self problem, which is how do you kill what's not yourself without killing the self. It's a very hard problem, so autoimmune disorder was a core part of that. And then I took a position as a visiting scholar at the Medical University of South Carolina, mostly focused on T regulatory biology, which is a subset of Tregs. So I come from finance. Most of my academic work is computational immunology, some neuroscience, and Bittensor became a passion of mine last year. It's one of the only cryptos, it's the only crypto I've ever felt early on, and I love the vision. And it seemed like such a natural fit for what we were doing at analytics.bet, where we're educating geniuses. Like, we're educating people who are very smart, who are very committed, and eventually they build systems and become winning bettors. And then they have this freedom, and then that freedom gets limited by the sports books when they get banned or have very, very low limits. And then, so everybody who's good, including our students, they all wind up having to solve this problem. And so me, Harry, and Philip have been thinking about this problem for years, and all of the solutions are, very centralized. And we were thought, well, what would we want to use in this situation? And when I learned about Bittensor, and we started talking about, seeing the overlap between the problems we were seeing in real life and how Bittensor unlocks adjacent possibilities that just weren't there without it, everything came together, and we got great support, and we're able to launch Djinn this year.
Can I before we move on to Philip, I want to actually probe on what you were just saying. So you saw that there were centralized versions of this product, and you wanted to do a decentralized version of it. Why? Why do you think that's important?
Well, I think there's two reasons why it's very important. One is logistical and one is psychological. The logistical one is just dealing with a lot of strangers and having to trust them and having potentially your money stolen, and having to spend most of your energy coordinating strangers is not a good use of resources for highly intelligent people. Like, you should be spending what you have the most competitive advantage in, which is using your intellectual horsepower to stack your edges and create better and better models. The other one is psychological. So a lot of the people who get involved in this and who become geniuses are often introverted, and they have a deep desire to feel free, and they like the ability to just do something by themselves and win and be independent. So the combination of a desire for freedom and independence, as well as a general inclination towards introversion, makes the idea of dealing with a lot of strangers in order to maintain the value of your information highly unappealing. And so I think those two things are massive, massive drivers that take the current genius market as which I think we know very well, and could potentially even expand it 10x, because people who would look at the market and say, well, yeah, even if I'm good at that, then it'll give me 2-3 years and then I'm out because I'm not going to do this. What Djinn will unlock is that it becomes a permanent income stream if you're good.
Very interesting. So basically the best autists, if you will, is spelled AU, right? Those people, that's who knows who's going to win the bets, right? They don't have a sports almanac. They have this. and they're just sort of like they're independent and sort of autistic, and they just in their belly they don't like the man, right? And if the man is centralized, decentralizes, there's no the man. There's just all of us sort of all competing with each other, and it's fair and it's mathematical, and that just feels better to the best talent. So you're just going to attract the best geniuses and the best talent into your ecosystem if you have that ethos. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And also there's a natural partnership. It's not geniuses competing with idiots. It's geniuses colluding with idiots. It's everybody who's in the ecosystem who is, on the other side, on the user side, making bets, putting their skin in the game. They're all working together and creating true synergy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the one thing, Mark, just people sometimes don't, some people are caught off guard by the term idiot. Some like it, some love it, some hate it. But it's actually, one is that in the application we're talking about, everybody would want to be called. You want to be thought of as an idiot because it's what keeps you alive and viable in the betting world. You don't want, it's kind of, for me, it's interesting where, coming from academia, everybody wants everyone else to think of them as a genius, and that they're not actually geniuses. In betting, the people who are really smart want you to think of them as an idiot because it's what keeps them in business. And so there is that, I actually think of it as a positive thing, to be thought of as an idiot. Others might not, so I think there is a difference of perspective there that's important. But as Iosif said, the people who become successful, they end up spending 99% of their time eventually on something that they're not good at, which is dealing with people, logistics, administration, which, ultimately this problem, the centralized solutions, just to be clear, there is actually no product that exists for this. There are centralized solutions in the sense that large syndicates eventually get to such a size where they do just have an operation that manages thousands and thousands of accounts or idiots to do this for them. And then the issue with it is that it's a revolving door, because once the idiot gets the good information, they become kind of a genius. So they start to get limited. You got to get more. You got to get more. You got to get more. So it's a never-ending process. And then just one last thing that hasn't been mentioned, but it's crucial, is why is the decentralization, the smart contracts, why is that all so critical here? What just happened yesterday with 3, happens every day in these centralized things, not at the level, which is, if you tell somebody to go do something and it's not them buying it from you, it's actually generally a partnership where if they win, they're supposed to pay you back. Of course, sometimes they disappear with the money, right? And so that is a solution that had to be solved.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Philip, you've been very patient, but please tell me about yourself and how you came to be into this project as well, and what interested you about Bittensor and this.
Sure. So my original background was in finance, and then the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference started accepting research papers. So me and my brother and a friend of ours, we started writing papers, academic papers, taking tools and techniques from finance, applying it to sports. And that was the first introduction I had to the sports analytics community, which was, thousands of people attend that conference now every year. In my academic journey, I've started from being a finance professor, then later analytics and finance. Now I'm just pure analytics professor, analytics and AI. But that initial beauty of community is what is so remarkable about Bittensor. Iosif was our leader. He pushed us towards Bittensor, kicking and screaming. Like, well, what was this crypto? What are we talking about? But then when you start looking at how it works, I was under a misapprehension for a long time, because decentralized AI, you think it's all code. It's not. Bittensor is really about people. It's all about people and community. Managing our Discord servers, miners popping up and saying this is broken, or validators down. It's not just pushing code. You have to explain to them what's going on, and maybe you need to change your env variables or whatever it is. Or the DDoS attacks start happening. What do we do? one of the solutions we found for that was we wrote some code that we've open sourced to all subnet owners that would help protect miners from being attacked by other miners. The other thing about decentralization, in addition to what Harry and Iosif were saying, is, and we're seeing it exactly now with 3, is you can leave, right? The owners can leave, and it can cause devastation and havoc and chaos. But the network, the protocol, the benchmark remains, doesn't it? So that's the other important point about the decentralization. We could all disappear or be no longer interested, but the Djinn will continue to exist. Your track record will continue to exist. You'll be able to continue doing what you wanted to do.
Yeah, it is separate. I think it's harder to leave than people think, and I think that's good. And I think, in your case, if you decided to leave, your network that's supplying all the information that you're selling, like basically this is your product department, right? Your subnet is your product department. It's producing the product that you sell, right? And you can leave and do that in another way, but now your economics are very different. You'd have to pay all those geniuses, right, to do what they're doing right now. The chain's paying them right now, right? You're not.
That's true, and that's true of every subnet, but it's all the more so true for us, because what would it mean for us to go centralized? Now, if all of our claims are now subject to scrutiny, how do we know that you're no longer able to see all of the things, right? But decentralized, all the code is available. Run your own code if you don't believe us, right?
Yeah.
Are you curious, or, so a lot of people sometimes are curious. Well, we've been talking a lot about sports betting. I said earlier, we're not a sports betting subnet. So what are the other applications of that, of this idea? What is the big picture? Philip, Iosif, you're better at answering that than me because I'm the sports betting guy.
I like Iosif's answer. It's very science fiction-y.
Well, okay, so there's many applications, and we're focused on executing on something that we know well and something that is well defined. However, as soon as you unbundle intelligence from execution and you make intelligence portable, then theoretically anything that can have verifiable execution, that's subject to Djinn. So there could be a Djinn for something like remote robotics on Mars. And I know that sounds crazy, but imagine there is forget about Mars for a second. Imagine that there are 2 countries that don't have the same IP laws. And you have a trusted computing environment that has a high degree of freedom robot. Now, that high degree of freedom robot might need to do something that is complex, where the intelligence of what it's doing is the true economic value of that physical materialization. Well, if I don't trust the IP laws of that, I'm not going to give away my secret sauce to the person running the robot. And so therefore I can't capture that market. But if it's done via our protocol, then I can sell that information. I know that information will be used, for example, once by that robot in that remote location. I capture that value, and then nobody knows what I did, but the outcome is verifiable. So, and the reason why the robot owner will trust it is because I have a verifiable reputation of doing what I say I would do. And I put the skin in the game. So if we set up the incentive mechanisms correctly, the potential for going into remote robotics, the potential for selling other sorts of intelligence related to, stock picks or anything else, it becomes open. Everywhere where intelligence is lacking, it can now be monetized, and it can create value for the people who know how to create value, making just the world a smarter place.
Yeah, okay, so like single serving intelligence for anything. So, it could be robots on Mars, could be a lot of different things. But yeah, it's coin op, single serving, here's a little bit of intelligence. Here's a little blip, your brain gets a little bit smarter for a specific vertical for a specific period of time. So, yeah, okay.
And the competition
creates a marketplace, it creates a price mechanism.
Yes. Okay, gentlemen.
The competition drives the 2 different verticals, right? You can become more and more intelligent, and you have to outcompete other people to sell your intelligence, right, with your track record. So you can imagine how exponentially, that can grow really fast. On the other side, people who can execute better, or robots who can execute better, they can just focus on that thing, right? So now that you've decoupled it, you don't need one company to solve both problems. If you have a great idea for intelligence, work over here. A great idea for execution, work over here. And when the connection happens, both benefit.
Okay, so we're almost at the end of the hour here, so I just want to make sure we get the plugs in. So first of all, your site is up and running, but it's with test data right now. Where is your site, and when do you think it's going to go live? And if you have any other Twitter handles or anything else you want to plug, now's the time.
Yeah, so our site is djinn.gg, jinn.gg. We're subnet 103, and we're also Djinn GG on X.
You
Okay.
can also, if that's,
GG.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Harry.
No, that's it.
That's
When do you think when is your product going to launch live? I know you're doing it with test data right now. Do you have a date set, or is that just sort of?
We don't have a date set. It's not the data now is live. It's live game, live odds. Everything is live. It's just not live dollars. So it's still on the base of Polia. We don't have a date. We don't want to commit to a date. We want to commit to quality. We want to make sure that it's ready to go. That's one of the beauty parts of Bittensor is because it solves the cold start problem. It allows people to release more polished versions, things that are almost perfect or as perfect as they can be, rather than rushing, because you only have a chance to launch properly once. We want to make sure that it's a wonderful experience for everybody. And by the way, if it's hard to spell Djinn, I know it's hard for me. You could just go to geniusidiotnetwork.com. Awesome.
Good to know. Okay, gentlemen. All right. Well, this has been a fascinating hour. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. I'll definitely be checking out Djinn myself, and love the work you're doing. I love the enthusiasm. So thank you so much for spending the last hour with us. My name is Mark Jeffrey. This has been Hash Rate. We'll see you all next time.